Welcome to the Dave Palma Show, the podcast that revives, restores, and awakens your innermost capabilities.
You have the training and the talent to succeed, but do you have the guts to fail?
I love what I do. When you love what you do, you want to be the best at it.
Today is about the power of you. You will change the world.
Find your path to success through the journey of those who have succeeded. And now, your host, Dave Palma.
Hi, welcome back to the Dave Palma Show. And on the show, I have someone who is a human futurist researcher and co-founder of a UK company called Human Futurology. Chris Stiles, welcome to the Dave Palma Show.
Hello, Dave. Thank you so much. Lovely to be here.
Great to have you here, Chris. Great to have you here. And I know you have a story to tell and a way to overcome certain personal, difficulties you have. And, I love it when people like yourself come on my show. I have dyslexia myself, which probably I didn't find it until I was 40, actually. But you also have more of a neurodiverse disability. Well, it's not a disability, learning difference, or whatever you want to call it. And it's quite interesting that you're so successful with your company, Futurology. So I'd like to find out more about Futurology, and you can discuss, applying futurology in business with my audience. But before you do that, let's hear about your humble beginnings in life and how you've overcome your obstacles. So if you
Dave?
Yes, yep. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you so much. Futurology, it sounds quite a big, complex word. And I guess it really is born out of the thinking in terms of, is it impossible to predict the future? Now, of course, we would absolutely love to think that that is the case. And if you look at the world of futurists, which are basically specialists that are being hired by top companies around the world in order to try and give the C-suite executives some competitive advantage, mostly around technology. This is a field which is just growing and developing. The thing is, if you walk into any top corporation and you sit down with the CEO and you ask them what their most valuable asset is, they will always say their people. Yet, what is the most misunderstood within an organization? It is the people. You can ask them, pull out your plans, pull out your risk management plans, and it's all there. They can pull out plans for this, plans for that, plans for redundancy, if a site goes down. But they have literally zero understanding in terms of the real potential inside of their business. And I think this is, where one of the real opportunities lies. And so this is actually how I ended up, getting into this field. Was a real curiosity, and it was born out of trying to make sense of events that happened in my life. So, Dave, my childhood was a good childhood, reasonably privileged, great education. Went off to university, did a BSc honors, went on, did a master's degree, which I finished cum laude. Immediately went on to a PhD, and I was just flying. Honestly, Dave, at that stage of my life, it was a bit like Icarus, where everything that I touched turned to gold, and I was on this phenomenal trajectory, and just everything was falling into place. And then all of a sudden, it was as if I just had a supersonic explosion, and that was it. Everything started to go wrong. And one thing led to another, led to a divorce, etc. And after having gone through an extraordinarily difficult time of my life where literally I felt completely and utterly emotionally eviscerated. I was trying to make sense of it, and it's how could I have been on such a golden trajectory? How could everything have been going so well, and all of a sudden, bang, it stops, and literally stops in midair, like a complete engine failure, and you just fall out of the sky, and there's no recovery. And once you are on the ground and you're smashed for a considerable period of time. And, this really got me scratching my head. And my father, as a mathematician and a physicist, and he always used to say to me, Chris, ask one question. And that question is why? Why did this happen? Because when you get an answer and then you ask why of that answer and so on and so forth, you suddenly start to really open yourself to new possibilities, new lines of thought. And this is exactly it, because statements close the mind and questions open the mind. And Dave, later on in life, realizing that I am neurodivergent, that I am autistic, I started to make sense of my life through a completely different set of lenses to that which most people would. And the lenses that I relied on were logical lenses. It was like, let me try and make sense of this through logical process. Anyway, the greatest breakthrough, and I really say this with a tremendous amount of joy, came when I actually began to do mathematical modeling around who and what I was. So, for example, I took my name, I took my date of birth, and I began to take all of these data points and create a very complex, detailed mathematical model in an attempt to try and make sense of my journey. And Dave, after a lot of work and an intense amount of research and being scientifically trained, everything has got to line up. So you need to come up with repeatable results. So it's not just a once-off. What I actually discovered through trying to unpack my own personal pain was that every single one of us have what I call an intelligent mathematical blueprint, which is laid down from the moment you are born. And when you understand this blueprint, or if you will, to use a coaching term, your authentic self, however, this time it's expressed in numbers, codes, and sequences, all of a sudden you begin to clearly see the seasonality of your life. And it is absolutely astonishing when you see the seasonality of your life through numbers and codes and trends, that you begin to realize, hold on a moment, this is really, really astonishing. There's stuff going on here that I just would never have thought of. When I unpacked my intelligent mathematical blueprint, Dave, all of a sudden I could see the loss of my business. I could see this explosion that happened in midair. Suddenly, events that had happened in my life, Dave, were not nearly as random as what I would have liked to have thought they were. And I know that revealing this is actually quite a shocking truth, and sometimes it's almost too much for some people to process. But the modeling and the work and the research that I have done, and the field that I'm working in called Human Futurology, which is really about unpacking the future of the human, but on a mathematical level of intelligence, much like geneticists have done through genes and sequences. This just opens up a whole different line of understanding, because suddenly, Dave, you see, and I mean, I'm having done this through hundreds of case studies and spent thousands and thousands and thousands of hours analyzing and building and testing. When you suddenly get to a point where you realize births are not random, marriages are not random, divorces are not random. These are events that are actually very intricately wired or coded into our lives. You suddenly start to begin to think about the construct of life so differently.
Yeah. Wow, well, I mean that's quite interesting, really, especially with divorce rate. I was in a job where divorce rate was, well, I don't think it's quite high. I suppose when you work in shifts, the stress and things like that. But yeah, I mean, statistics probably does fall into a certain pattern. How would you explain that with the work you do?
Well, Dave, let's take a big step back. One of the most interesting bits of research that I did went around Steve Jobs.
Mm,
Now, I unpacked Steve Jobs' entire mathematical blueprint, and he had an absolutely unique line of code in 2004. And this 2004 code aligned with the intelligence that existed within his blueprint on an emotional level. What happened to Steve Jobs in 2004? He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
mm,
Now, that was not random. And the reason I share this example with you, Dave, is because this is popping up again and again and again and again in the work that I am doing. Now, when you talk about statistics, this is the incredibly important part of the work. Is at the moment, I am one person doing this work alone. I know that when I build a person's intelligent mathematical blueprint, that the numbers and the sequences are absolutely bang on. So, for example, if I got your data, I modeled your life path or your journey, what I would put in front of you in the way of a data matrix would absolutely blow your mind, because all of a sudden you would start to see key events and key experiences happening in your life at moments that you thought were just random, which suddenly starts to take away this randomness of life. But the thing is, Dave, to get it to a point where it actually becomes really valuable to society, you need to be working with massive data sets. You need to bring in scientific rigor. So the thing is, what I have done is create the backbone or the basis of a model which allows us to take a brand new view of a human's life and a human's journey and a person's experiences. Now, if I, for example, had the data of 5,000 people who were diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and I was working with top mathematicians and statisticians, and we were loading this into a test case scenario, we would suddenly start to see trends, and then the data starts to become highly accurate and predictive. And Dave, this is exactly what people are doing every single day in the world of business. You look at it, they are using past data, past intelligence in order to be able to make future decisions. And this is the whole thing. And this is what we really need for people as well. Because, we would like to think that so much of our life is random, but it isn't. We don't really understand the first thing about forward-looking human risk. Dave, just to give you an example, and this is the type of thing that I find astonishing when I do my research. Let's just take, for example, this crypto billionaire who has really set the world alight. This chap called Sam Bankman-Fried. Now, he basically, if you will, just suddenly popped on the scene, created billions, and then all of a sudden everything went bang. And he is now in the US basically facing lawsuits around the biggest fraud in the history of America. Dave, when I analyze his intelligent mathematical blueprint and I put the data in front of me, as astonishing as that sounds, it does sound sometimes to people like I'm speaking a foreign language, but that's what electricity would have been until people understood the power of electricity. Now, the thing is, when I put his blueprint down in front, you can see that the theme that defines his life, changes a year consistently from 2017 through to 2028. Vast amounts of research that I have done prove that when this has happened, the person's in a high-risk phase of their life. When, according to the mathematical sequences in his grand organized design, was the year of highest risk, 2023. What has happened in 2023, Dave? This is when everything's gone bang for him. And the thing is, this is evident over and over and over and over again. So to answer your question, Dave, basically what we are grappling with here is we are grappling with the challenges around a brand new line of thought. And the brand new line of thought is an uncomfortable one to entertain, but it is definitely one that needs to be thought about. And that is, what if the design of our lives is not nearly as random as what we would think it is? And what if, on the back of that, the only thing that we have control over is how we react to situations?
Yeah, no, that's quite. It's a matter of reacting. Sorry, well, it's really a matter of responding as opposed to reacting, I suppose, isn't it? Really, but what I was next question I was thinking that we've been talking about, we're talking about all the stats and everything, especially when you talked about the crypto billionaire. Is how does your work relate to artificial intelligence, or can it be applied to artificial intelligence?
Well, Dave, you're asking such an interesting question. And remember, one of the reasons why I decided to leave South Africa, which was where I was born and raised, and come to the UK, was to get to a country where there's much more cutting edge happening, if I can put it like that, around these fields like artificial intelligence. Now, once again, Dave, through shows like yours, and thank you so much for this opportunity, this work of mine is now being revealed. There will definitely be people out there who will think, you've got to be joking. You have got to be joking. This is just insane. I've never heard anything, more ridiculous than this. This guy must be on some hallucinogenic substances. The fact of the matter is, it exists. Dave, you have an intelligent mathematical blueprint. And when you understand it, your entire life and the understanding of your life changes. So do I. So does Boris Johnson. So do all of these various people, Michelle Obama. And when you actually unpack this and you start to look and understand the intelligence within it, you begin to realize that there is a massive amount of, if you will, of intelligence residing in this. And on the back of that, you can become more proactive. So if you look at certain situations and you see that the intelligence on a forward-looking view, it reveals higher risk. And this is very obvious through, for example, repeating codes. When you see these repeating codes, if the code reveals a higher risk, then you would start to think differently or plan differently. Also, Dave, it reveals golden moments in time. Now, let's take, for example, the world of competitive sport. Can I
just stop you there for a minute? I'll just pause in for a minute, Chris, so go.
So, Dave, let's take the world of competitive sport, where you are dealing with elite athletes. And elite athletes, the difference between winning and losing is literally what you could call a razor's edge.
Right.
Now, as a coach, imagine if you had the intelligence. So if you saw a phenomenal athlete, a phenomenal youngster, and you had this intelligent mathematical blueprint intelligence, and you could look 3, 4, 5 years into the future using this intelligence and suddenly see a golden moment in this person's life, would the plan around this person not be considerably different? Now, this is, and the reason I raise this is because we think that, this is not the case. It is. You can absolutely see performance seasonality in the data. Let's take the Rugby World Cup at the moment, and the team which is doing phenomenally well in the Rugby World Cup, Ireland. So, there you have the coach, Andy Farrell, and the captain, Johnny Sexton. People would think, Ireland are just having a golden patch. They've since 2021, 2022, they've been playing incredible rugby. They're now the number one side in the world, and there's a very high probability that they will win the Rugby World Cup. When I unpack the mathematical blueprint of Andy Farrell, the coach, and Johnny Sexton, the captain, both of them are in a golden moment performance-wise. Now, how do I know this, Dave? Because I have done thousands of hours of research in analytics. And therefore, you can see. So the thing is, this is not random. And the exciting thing is that this type of research and intelligence could not only change the way we manage people and manage talent and manage time on people and talent, but it could also change the way that, let's say, the world of coaching, for example, interacts with a client. Because the coach might suddenly realize, hold on a moment, when I look at this, when I look at that, this intelligence is revealing a different approach. And this, to me, is what it's all about, Dave. It's not about saying this is the be-all and end-all of everything. But what I have developed is I have developed a very powerfully accurate strategic tool, which could be very well or very easily applied into the world of high-performing people to help them get a competitive edge. And what's wrong with that?
No, absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. And just to let you know, also, I don't know if you read up about my new website, actually, that I was a former Commonwealth Games semi-finalist. So I'm quite aware of what you're talking about in terms of relating it to sports. And sports does have some similarities or transferable skills that can be applied to business. So I quite follow what you mean by there in terms of intelligent mass blueprint. Chris, how can people find out more about your work, and do you have anything else you could give out there before you go?
Well, Dave, they are welcome to visit the website humanfuturology.co.uk. They're also welcome to follow me on Twitter, which is Chris_Styles19.
X, by the way, it's a new name.
Yeah, but I think the thing for me, Dave, is just to encourage people to think. And had I actually not been autistic, and had I not gone and challenged conventional thinking, and had I not made sense of my world through numbers, patterns, and sequences, I would never have discovered this. Therefore, being autistic is actually a blessing. It is not a handicap.
Exactly.
And I have seen and made sense of things in a dimension that a lot of people really struggle to understand. But the thing is, I know that it is real because I've proven it over and over again. And even when I sit with clients, top clients, they are blown away at the accuracy of this information. So it really is about having done something very differently. And right now, Dave, the real job or the task to hand is to get it into a format where it is simple enough and accessible enough that it can be used for the benefit of people in terms of understanding themselves better and also better decision making.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, thanks a lot for coming in and sharing your work and your story to my audience today on this podcast episode. And I wish you the best, and I will look into this a bit further myself. It sounds really, obviously, it's a business what I'm doing, I suppose, with my own thing. And I've come from a sporting background. I should really look more closely into it. But in the meantime, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
It has been an absolute pleasure.
That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening, and remember, if you want to support what we do, then share, subscribe, and leave a review over on Apple Podcasts, or head over to my website, davepalmer.com, and click on Rate Show. Well, that's all for now, but I'll see you in the next episode of The Dave Palmer Show.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.